is Lisa Johnson, and I'm the head of investment law and policy at the Columbia Center on Sustainable Investment. I'm one of the co-editors of this book, Rethinking Investment Incentives, and I also wrote Chapter 12, which deals with the regulation of investment incentives at the international or the supranational level.
So you may have heard of this. In the fall of 2016, then President-elect Trump announced that he was trying to get Carrier, a manufacturing company, to keep jobs in Indiana that the company had planned to move to Mexico. To get some of those jobs to stay, he reportedly brokered a deal to give $7 million in incentives to the company. Trump, of course, hailed it as a success, and for the workers in Indiana who may be able to keep the jobs they otherwise would have lost, it must have been welcome news. Their concerns about their livelihoods and uncertainty about job stability are issues that governments must hear and respond to. But what are the implications of this incentives deal? For one, there are the implications that one would have to understand after conducting a cost-benefit analysis. What did the $7 million actually buy? Was that money well spent? What did the government get? Did it get a short-term commitment to keep some jobs? A longer-term commitment to keep all jobs? Did the government get good value for money? And how do we know? Would that money be better spent elsewhere on, for example, education, training, or infrastructure? These types of questions are part of a cost-benefit analysis and are crucial to ask and to understand, and they're discussed in other chapters of the book. In my chapter, I focus on implications at the international level, implications for regulation of the global economy. In this Carrier example, we have one country throwing $7 million at a company to prevent it from moving across borders and creating jobs in another country. So what are the impacts in Mexico? Would it want to respond with an even better offer in order to get the jobs in the industry it thought it was going to receive? Assume it offered Carrier $7.5 million. Would the U.S. respond with 8? The victor in any bidding war for investment may actually get the project, but the price paid could hollow out or even overwhelm the prize. In addition to being wasteful, these bidding rounds disadvantage governments with less money to give. Similar to the issues raised by Kenneth Thomas in his chapter, which covers regulation and competition for capitals at the national or subnational level, there's an important need to try to limit these costly competitions for capital. So what exists at the international level to do so? The short answer, which I discuss in my chapter, is not much. The EU state aid regime is the most comprehensive and effective international agreement regulating investment incentives. It prevents one country in the EU from using incentives to pull investment away from other EU countries, and it has special rules providing greater flexibility to low-income countries and low-income regions within countries. But this framework is limited in coverage to EU member states. Elsewhere, the rules are limited or non-existent. So now there's a network of international investment treaties, of which the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA, is one, which aim to make it easy for companies to move their operations across borders. Those treaties, however, generally don't contain rules that prevent countries from trying to outbid each other for that mobile capital. A relatively small number of agreements do contain rules that prevent countries from lowering or failing to enforce their labor or environmental laws in order to attract or keep investment. But those provisions aiming to limit the use of some regulatory incentives have apparently been weak in practice. And they're incomplete, in that they leave governments largely free to use fiscal and financial incentives. So what is to be done? The short answer is a lot, and the EU state aid regime provides an interesting model to use as inspiration. As countries are considering negotiating and concluding new investment treaties, and renegotiating treaties such as the NAFTA, I think it's important to put these issues back on the agenda. Thanks.